What is going on, everybody? It is me, and I am joined by John, and we are going to conspire to make a bunch of money. How are you doing, John?
Dude, I wish I had that wherewithal to think about all those crazy antics that we were going to talk about on this episode of Mattalk. But I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm great. I am doing great. I'm doing mostly great. I'll talk about on Three Geeks next week. But things are mostly good. I am looking forward to watching Matlock tonight, even though it's not a reboot. I was really proud of one of the guys in our Matlock group because he was explaining the same thing we've been explaining for the last few months. They just share a name. They just wanted to use this title. The show is referenced within the show. I'm looking forward to it. I think it looks like a good CBS show, and I like good CBS shows. So. And Kathy Bates, it's her last acting role. Like I'm in.
Well, we got a little bit of a surprise for our listeners. We met somebody that is going to appear on Matlock, the new one. We met them at Monroe Comic Con. We won't say who it is yet because we want to definitely keep that under wraps because we have to get clearances and all that jazz. But that individual gave us some. Gave us a little bit of some insider baseball, so to speak, about her appearance on the show. And so can't wait to talk about that. We can't go any further than that. So we'll just stop there. But yeah, you know what? I'm in the boat with you, man. I'm going to be open-minded. I'm going to give it a chance, see what happens. Originally I was maybe one of those ones that were poo-pooing it, but you know what? I'm ready to give it a chance. I'm ready to go. So, however, it's competing with us, so to speak. So, Jason, do you want to let folks know about next week and what's going on next week?
A lot of you have said you guys are not watching this, but I know you're lying. I know a lot of people are going to be checking it out, and that's fine. You should everything should be given a chance. The way I go into reboots, even though this isn't a reboot, is you got to look at it as its own thing and just enjoy it for what they're presenting to you. Don't compare it to the old because nothing good comes with that. Can you imagine if when The Thing came out in the early 80s, if everybody was like, I'm not going to go see that movie because I like the original. The Thing is one of the greatest sci-fi horror films of all time. Can you imagine them not giving that remake a chance? Or Scarface for that matter. But we're moving our show to 7. So you get Mattalk, then Matlock. That's not because we're covering the Matlock show, even though we are going to do the pilot next week. I will be covering the show weekly through shorts on our social media. So guys, go follow us on Facebook and follow me on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube and all the fun stuff. But so we're moving the show back.
Well, there you go. Well, we're moving it up. We're not moving it back. We're moving it up. We're moving up to 7.
We're moving on up.
That's another show for another podcast. Hey, by the way, where can you find us online? Well, of course, as Jason mentioned, you can find us on Facebook at Mattalk Podcast. And of course, we also have a great email address that and bust it out for us, please, Jason.
Guys, email us, benmattalk@gmail.com. It is down below. And just check out the bottom of the screen. You guys will know where to email us. But John, it's been a week of premieres, man. So we got Agatha All Along came out, and the show is fun. The Penguin came out. That show is incredible. It is so good. It's The Sopranos set in the Batman world, and it's awesome. Is it as good as The Sopranos? No, I don't mean that kind of comparison, but it is about organized crime and so forth. And it takes place immediately after the Batman movie, and it was really, really good. And I don't like Colin Farrell in anything, but this is what he was born to play.
Really? That Colin Farrell, you don't like him in anything?
I liked him in Horrible Bosses. That's the only thing I can remember. Man, this guy, I've seen him in Daredevil, didn't like it. I've seen part of Troy, didn't like it. Phone Booth is totally a guilty pleasure. It's not a good movie, but I can't think. Tell me something of Colin Farrell's that's good, and I'll go check it out.
In Bruges. In Bruges is a great gangster film. I like him in that. I like him in The Gentleman with Matthew McConaughey. Fantastic as well. I agree with you. a lot of those movies that he were not very good. I agree with you, Daredevil included. Man, I'm waiting for Agatha all along because I'm waiting. I canceled my Disney subscription because there was nothing on that I really wanted to watch, and so I thought, well, I'll cancel it for a while. I'll pick it back up at either December, January, where I can kind of binge watch Agatha and also what the new Star Wars show will be. Oz, it's not been on my radar, but I may have to check it out, man. I forgot that, to be bluntly honest, I forgot it was coming out.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Agatha all along, it's not like gonna change anybody's mind about the MCU, but it's still a fun show. I like the actors involved, all of them actually. The chemistry has been pretty good so far. And there's another show I've been watching that's a show like a Matlock, and I can't think of the name of it, but it's pretty solid. I watched Universal Basic, guys.
And how was that?
First episode was awful, but I give shows 3 episodes. Second episode was mildly amusing. I had a good time watching it. We'll see what the 3rd episode has in store for us, but so it went from awful to mildly amusing. So maybe we'll get a good one in the 3rd one. If it sucks, I'm out. But I mean, it got me, at least mildly excited to watch a 3rd episode.
Well, for me, I'm continuing. I'm now on season 2 of Homicide: Life on the Street, and I am thoroughly enjoying this rewatch. I remember how good that show was, but now watching it again for the 3rd time, man, it's just freaking excellent. I love it, man. I don't know. Have you been keeping up with it?
No, it's a lot harder to watch while I do other things than some of the other shows I watch. So, because it's very dense, kind of like The Penguin's very dense. So I had to watch it in my own time when I had time to actually focus on it.
I really enjoy it. In fact, I'm going to read a text from my buddy real quick. My buddy and I are watching it. So let me share this text. Oh, did I delete it? I deleted the text. Anyways, he was raving about how great it was and whatnot. So, but I have a show that I'd like to vent and like to rag on, if that's okay with you, Jason. I'll keep it short. It's time for Hot Take Orlando.
I'm sure it is.
Okay. Friday at work, I heard all about some female colleagues, all about talking about the secret wives of Mormon lives. And then I was with my girlfriend last night out to dinner with a couple of friends. And one of the friends said, "Oh, are you watching this? This is great." And of course, my girlfriend said no. So last night after dinner, we went back to her place. I was like, let's watch some of this if everybody's clamoring for it. It is utter garbage. Utter freaking dumpster fire. It's awful. Like, the whole title's misleading because it has nothing to do with the Mormon faith. It has nothing to do with faith at all. Every single one of those dummies, every single one of them, I'm trying hard not to swear. That's how fired up I am. But every one of those ditzes, they've either left the church or they just, we don't go by the rules. What's the point of belonging to a church then if you're not going to follow the rules?
John, if you watch that expecting anything less than the Wives of Beverly Hills, then that's on you. Because that's exactly what that title says it is.
That's true. You're very much right. And I know better, but both my girlfriend and I go, "Yep, no, we're not watching any more of this because it's the worst."
I don't know if it's Hot Take Orlando. It's just a reality show about wives. Like that's what I expected it to be. And if that's your thing, that's your thing. If that's not your thing, that's not your thing. That's not my thing. So I'm not going to watch it.
Okay. Well, can I ask you, what's your favorite reality show that you've ever watched?
The Circle.
Oh, I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that. Okay.
Max and I are obsessed with it.
Okay. I'm going Ice Road Truckers. I enjoyed Ice Road Truckers, even though I knew no one was going to die on the ice road, but still,
Do game shows count? Because I watch all of the game shows. Even
game shows.
Bad one with Shaquille O'Neal. Man, he is not a good game show host.
He's a good spokesman for the general.
He is.
I will give you that. But
all my game shows ended for the season, though. Press Your Luck, Family Feud. It's all over now.
But
we're getting more Pat Sajak and Celebrity Wheel of Fortune, which is starting soon. He's still hosting that.
Isn't the 100 back soon with Rob Lowe?
The floor, you mean?
Oh, well, yeah.
Awesome. Yes, I can't wait for the floor to be back.
What's the 100s, that old CW show? Whoops. Anyways, hey, are you ready, man, to talk about this episode of Matlock? Because we got a double episode, which we're going to treat it as one episode. But boy, oh boy, is it something special. What do you say? Shall we get started?
Dude, I am thrilled. And I saw a lady in this episode, and I'm like, it can't be her. She couldn't have been like, she looks her age for a long time.
Here, we'll get to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, let's jump into our opening statements. The episode title is The Trial. And as I mentioned, it is two parts. The first part aired on February 19th, 1991. And the second part aired on February 26th, 1991. For those that are keeping tabs at home, that means John Orlando was a junior in high school when this aired. Sorry, I just I just hit my lamp with my pen. Anyways,
it's funny, man, that we get DMs from Matlock fans, and I just got one asking me, or Mattalk fans asking me if I was watching the new episode. I'm like, no, not yet.
Oh, nice.
I will.
All right, let's talk about her. You mentioned it. Let's just go right to the main event, shall we? Frances Bay will be joining us as one of our guest stars.
Grandma.
She'll be playing the role of Samantha Bergstrom. You probably know her as Grandma in Happy Gilmore, or Aunt Barbara in Blue Velvet, Thelma in the Inspector Gadget movie, Dottie in The Wedding Planner, Aunt Ginny in The Middle, Leah Cochran in Port Charles, Mrs. Finch on the Hughleys, and about 100 other credits to her name.
Dude, she lived a long life. I believe she was 92 when I looked. Yeah, because I IMDb'd her, and she lived well into like 2012.
Okay, I was gonna say she's no longer with us, right?
Which is sad. It's been awesome to see her show up at like 105 in Happy Gilmore too.
Yeah. Well, let's move along to another gentleman that is one of those character actors. I've seen him on several of these shows, so he was very familiar. Ned Bellamy will be playing the role of Jimmy Giles. Previously, he appeared on season 3 of Matlock as Lyle in The Thoroughbred. Now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the gentlemen that was making fun of Don Swayze's character, and then Tyler comes in and goes, "Gentlemen, you have just apprehended the most dangerous man." Like, remember that whole spiel in that episode? I think he was one of the thugs. But he's also known as playing the role of Vincent Abro on Treme, Reverend Coggins on Under the Dome, Gerald Johns in Justified, Wilson in Django Unchained, and again, about another 100 or so titles to his name. So, and again, many of you might look him up and go, "Oh yeah, that guy."
There's a lot of that guys in this episode. And
there are.
That woman.
Well, let's go to our third guest star, Diana Muldaur. She will be playing the role of Judge Diana Levin.
She is unpleasant. Sorry.
Oh, she is. Yeah, that character is very unpleasant. We'll get to her in a few moments. She did a lot of voiceover work as Dr. Leslie Tompkins in Batman the Animated Series. She also played Rosalind Shays on LA Law, Dr. Polowski in Star Trek The Next Generation, Dr. Janet Carlisle on Quincy M.E., Chris on the Western show McCloud, and we have a hat trick, ladies and gentlemen. Woo!
Yeah, man, all three.
All three in a Perry Mason mystery, Matlock, and of course, Murder, She Wrote. So, Diana, welcome to the Hat Trick Club with all your other alumni that have been on those 3 shows.
And Empty Nest for some bonus points.
Why? Did you like Empty Nest?
No, I've never seen. I mean, I remember seeing it because my grandma used to watch it, but it's not one that stuck with me.
Okay, gotcha. Hey, don't forget, by the way, real quickly, that before we talk about this last guest star, hit us up. Drop some comments and questions in the channel or here, and let us know what you think. Don't keep bothering Jason's DMs. Just we're live, man. Drop them right below, okay?
Ooh.
All right, and last guest star, sort of. I want to talk about another character here in a minute, but it's Mike Farrell, who plays the role of Judge David Bennett. He spent many, many years on our TV sets as Captain B.J. Honeycutt on the show MASH.
Nice.
He's also the voice of Jonathan Kent in a lot of Superman animated series and animated movies. He played Judge Deacon on NCIS, Milton Lang on Desperate Housewives, Dr. James Hansen on Providence, and about 80 or 90 other roles to his credit. Jason, are you a fan of MASH, the TV show?
You know what, John? I am. I watched it I started watching it for the first time a few years ago, and something messed up with Hulu where it lost where I was, and I got frustrated, and I haven't gone back to figure out which episode I was on. But I really dug it, and it was not what I expected, because I know later on the show starts off more comedy, less drama, and I know later on that starts to shift a little bit. So when I went into it, I expected this drama, and it wasn't, and it was awesome. And I did because I started to see the progression into drama, and I still was in for the show. I like the subtle change, and the comedy's still there, but it gets a little bit more heavy-handed than it was. But yeah, very good show. Great cast.
It never connected with me. I never liked it. My sister-in-law watched it religiously. She watched it in reruns. She didn't watch the first go round. I didn't like it. I want to watch the movie because I've heard the movie is 10 times better than the actual TV show. So I really would like to check that out. Of course, the movie starring Donald Sutherland, who we lost a couple months ago.
Yeah, I think it's a hot take. I think people prefer the show over the movie.
Oh, I do. I think that is true. I think most people enjoyed the show, but I don't know. I'd like to check out the movie.
I do too.
Now, our last quote guest star, and I'm going to use that term loosely because we've talked about this gentleman before, because he's really not an actor. He's more of a director, and he's directed about a dozen or so episodes of Matlock. We talk about Leo Penn quite a bit because he is Sean Penn's dad. And he will actually have a bit part as Mr. Spaulding. So I just thought that since we've talked about Leo so many times, that we should give him some props and highlight the fact that he was in this episode as the dog walking Mr. Spaulding.
Yep, nice.
All right, Jason, I got a question to ask you. I know I forgot to ask you this question last time. I know, but I won't forget this time. Are you ready to give an opinion? Your opinion, and solely your opinion, so help you.
Let's go, man.
All right, then let's get ready to testify. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the plot of this episode is that Matlock is tapped to be a special prosecutor in a case involving the murder of a crooked prosecutor. So we go to the opening scene, which is a montage of some exterior shots of a courthouse, a gavel, some columns, the state seal of Georgia, easy for me to say. And then we get an exterior shot of Maxwell Toys. Jimmy is in there. Of course, we're talking about Jimmy Giles. He's in the offices, snooping around, and he's looking for something. And lo and behold, he walks out into the hallway, and there's a security guard who goes, "Hey, wait!" And he starts to chase Jimmy Giles. Jimmy Giles stops him, KOs him, but not before the watch that belonged to Jimmy was pulled off of his wrist by the security guard. So the security guard is then on trial, is in the courtroom on the stand, not on trial. And he says that he pulled the watch off of Jimmy. But then the defense attorney was like, well, let's talk about this. There was no lights on, were there? It's a dark hallway. How do you know it was my client? Well, that pretty much means that the security guard's not looking too, what's the word I'm looking for? Too important, too good of a witness, is he?
No.
So there's a sidebar, and the watch is missing. Apparently, it was in evidence lockup. Now it's missing. All right, the lawyers argue about it, and then Howard Wright, the prosecutor, gets 24 hours to produce the watch. And when he goes out in the hallway, Detective Savage, I don't think he's any relation to Randy Macho Man, anyways, is upset that the watch is missing. All right, so far, Jason, we have one mystery about this stupid watch, right? So what are your thoughts so far, just with these first few scenes of the episode?
I'm wondering what the heck is happening, because this is very different than how we've started this show before. Like, I'm trying to find out where Ben's at, how he will fit into this episode, which one of these 5 people are going to get killed. Like, all this stuff is going through my mind.
Mm-hmm. So Jimmy meets Howard Wright at the zoo, and basically Howard says, "I want out, man. I've done what you've asked me to do. I hid the watch. I didn't put it in lockup. I've done what you needed me to do. I want $100K, $100,000, and I'll leave town. You'll never hear from me ever again."
It's not that much money. I guess maybe back then it was not enough to leave town. I need some more money to leave town.
I don't know. You want to do a quick Google search? What would $100,000 be in 1991? Because I think it would be maybe pretty substantial at that time.
I'm going to see maybe how much not. It was in 1990. That's more accurate for what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay, house. I'm going to say, can I take a stab at it?
Yeah.
$38,000 is the average cost of an average American home. That's what I'm going to go with.
It ranges based on state, but it looks like the average is about $50,000
for a house.
In Ohio, you could get a house for about $62,000.
Okay. All right. So $100,000 would probably be substantial then. I mean, you could buy a house with it, Anyways, so Howard ends up chatting with his wife and says, "Hey, hon, I've been stressed out about this case. We talk about going to Colorado and just living the good life. Let's do it. No more talking. Let's do it, And so the wife is going to go see a movie with her sister, and Howard is just going to work in his wood shop. All right. So the next day, there's a sidebar, and the watch is still MIA. And so that means the case gets thrown out against Jimmy. All right. Which, here's my question. It seems to be that even with the watch, that's not a lot of evidence, is it?
No.
You have the testimony of the security guard, but he also swiped the watch from the guy. So is there something else? Anyways, Howard is woodworking in his shop, which is the next scene that we see. Here's my question. Howard seems pretty good at that woodworking. Why doesn't he just stop being a prosecutor and do that, man?
Money.
No,
money.
Seriously.
He's got to make more as a prosecutor than he would of a word worker.
Well, according to his conversation with the old wifey, he wasn't even worried about that. We're just going to go to Colorado. We're going to call.
I guess $100,000 seems good to you, then you're gone.
Yeah, but anyway, but as we suspect, as he's working in this wood shop, someone approaches and shoots and kills Howard Wright. And in a sad scene, his wife finds him laying on the floor, shot to death and covered in varnish. So, Jason, any thoughts? Any? I know you'd be happy that Mrs. Wright didn't get down and wallow in the varnish, in the blood.
I'm glad, and I'm glad we didn't see who the killer was. There's a lot of things I'm glad about in this.
Oh yeah.
Season. As we'll find out, there may be multiple people who didn't get down into the blood, which is awesome.
Would the varnish mix with the blood and then make the blood coagulate? I wonder.
Well, people just started bleeding in the world in these Matlock episodes, so I don't know, man. It's a new phenomenon.
All right, we get a scene of Attorney General Stuart Roberts stopping by Ben's house. And boy, oh boy, you would have sworn it was like the Beatles showed up, because Conrad cannot stop sucking up to the state's attorney or the Attorney General, could he? If there's anything you need, sir, I'll be in the other room. Oh, hello, I'm Conrad McMasters. I work with Ben.
I want to meet you. I want to work for you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right in front of Ben too. Like,
Can you pay me more than this cheapskate? He pays me in hot dogs. Dude, every time I watch Matlock, I'm mad I don't have hot dogs in my fridge. And I'm not really a hot dog eater, but I get cravings every time I watch Matlock.
I have some hot dogs in my fridge. Next time, you come on over, I'll make you some hot dogs. I'll grill them up proper too. None of this boiled in stupid hot dog water. Bleh, that's gross. I grill them on the grill, man, like a true champ.
That's, I mean, that's fair.
So
Hot
Stuart,
dogs is the only thing I'll eat burnt.
oh, okay, all right. Well, Stuart offers Ben the right to be the prosecutor on this case. All right, because Stuart believes that Howard may have been bought off to throw the Maxwell Toys case, and he wants somebody that is very good in the world of legal situations to handle the case. And I like how Ben gets everything he wanted except for his salary. I love how he's like, can I pick my own crew? Yes. Okay. Do I have the cooperation of the police? Yes. Can I get my 100? There's my fee. And I like what Stuart says to him. Stuart says, from what I understand, you don't need the money. Ooh, sick burn, man.
He says, this is more than just the money, this case, this opportunity.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, man. So Ben and Michelle interview Mrs. Wright, and Mrs. Wright claims that a gentleman named Daniel Price had called to talk to talk to her husband. And basically, the husband had told Daniel Price, hey, look, if anything ever happens to me, all right, you need to talk to Tom O'Hare and Judge Bennett, which that's not ominous at all. I mean, if you called me and said, hey, if anything happens to me, contact Max or Justin. I don't know if Justin would want that responsibility, but
I think if anything happens to me, contact my mom. I think that's
contact
my chain
your mom.
of command. But
okay,
I mean,
well,
Justin is my beneficiary at work. Like, if anything goes wrong, he's in charge of my affairs. I didn't want him to know until I was gone, because that's a lot of work for somebody.
Oh no, folks! If Jason ends up murdered next week, we know who it is. Justin said in our own private chat, I didn't know that, but you better check your brakes.
You're just in charge of planning the funeral. Everything's left to the kids. It's already stated.
You know what? Let's get off this morbid topic. All right, we don't want anything to happen to anybody. All right, anybody of our crew or whatnot, or any of the great listeners out there. So Ben finds out that Howard got some inheritance recently. Ben also loves the craftsmanship of Howard and his woodworking skills. So outside, Ben wants Michelle to talk to Bennett. And she was like, can I talk to O'Hare instead? And he's like, no, I want O'Hare, because this O'Hare, he wants to get some quick cash from Maxwell Toys. And then Michelle's like, I dated David. Notice how Matlock doesn't care. Matlock's like, oh, okay. So I still got dibs. I got dibs on O'Hare. He does not care at all. However, we have our first clue. There's some transmission fluid on the driveway of the Wright's house. And so that is going to be one clue that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Bob Brooks is on the scene. He mentions that Howard was shot while using his varnish. I like how Brooks talks about okay. Sorry, we got a note from our producer. Anyways, and now Jason disappeared. I don't know what's going on here, folks. I'd like to tell you all, this is the truth. This is absolutely true. We're trying out new software, so we're still figuring out what certain buttons do. There's that big red one that launches nuclear missiles, I think. I'm not sure. Anyways, you're back!
It wasn't a note from your producer. It was a note from me, John.
Oh, it was a note for you. Okay, my bad.
I left my freezer open before the show. I'm like, oh, crap. I need to go close that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyways. So Bob Brooks, he runs this whole shtick about, it's customary for the prosecutor to buy the police department, the police detective lunch. That did not work, I don't think. Conrad snooping around some apartments, and he passes a guy who's leaving with a bunch of suitcases in his hand, and he says, "Excuse me, are you Jimmy?" And so he tries to talk Jimmy into cooperating, and what does he get in for his trouble? Kapow! He gets punched in the face. Poor Conrad. That happens a lot to him.
It does.
So Ben sneaks into the courtroom while Tom O'Hare is doing his cross-examination of the individual from Maxwell Toys. And basically, there is a big confusion on whether Jim Sullivan, the client of Tom O'Hare, or somebody else from Maxwell Toys came up with the Mary Moody doll, which is a terrible name for a doll. Like, why? Would your daughter wanted to play with Moody Mary doll?
Yes. Yes,
really?
Yeah. Oh my
god. If she saw the commercial, she'd be like, "Daddy, I gotta get one."
Yeah, and she would have gotten one. I mean, I'm gonna be honest.
Your honesty is refreshing. Thank you, sir. So Ben chats with O'Hare. And basically, Ben says, "Hey, look, I'm working on this other case, and the right Maxwell Toys O'Hare, you guys are all kind of together. You kind of linked up together, kind of connected together." And O'Hare's kind of is acting a little bit shady, but he was like, he blows Ben off. And then we go to a scene where Michelle meets with David. David is very, very happy to see Michelle. And so they talk a little bit about what she's doing. They catch up a little bit. And David said he would love to talk more about this case over dinner. Now, what's your initial thoughts about old slick David here?
I don't really know what to make of David.
David.
He seems a lot shadier than we find out that he is, but he's still shady. Like, in the grand scheme of things, he's definitely a weasel, but he seems like more of a weasel than he is of that weasel.
Well, we go to a scene where Conrad fills in Ben about Jimmy, and then Ben gets a mysterious phone call, and this person that's on the phone wants to meet with Ben. Okay, and so Ben's like, "Okay, I'll head on out." No, Conrad. Nope, Conrad, you can't go. So there's a bookstore. And the mystery man gives Ben a clue to look for the money. And so basically they're doing the very cloak and dagger, like, in the different rows of books and talking among the books there. And the mystery man says, "Hey, leave your porch light on when you've got something that you need to tell me or that you want to see me." All right.
Listen, mysterious guy. If you had just told Ben everything that you knew in this moment, your fate might have been very different. Granted, this episode would have been a lot quicker. But I'm just saying, like, why we gotta be mysterious? It's just like that when you're watching a movie and they're like, "I have all the information that you need right now, but this line might be listened to. Meet me later." You know that they're never meeting each other. It's never happening.
No.
Tell people what you want to know, what they need to know.
Well, Ben was making a hot dog while chatting with Conrad. And then Bob, it's mentioned that Bob Brooks and Michelle are going through the personal finances of Howard. Michelle chats with a scumbag named Glenn Connor, because this guy looks like a scumbag. And they talk a little bit about a former employee, John McClane. Remember that name, we'll come back to it, okay? And it's not a Die Hard reference. The Connor Corporation is a client of Howard's. And Glenn claims that Howard is nothing more than a consultant. So Ben meets with the mystery man again for the second time. And O'Hare has a client that illegally has a letter for that doll that was placed in there. So Jimmy basically was putting a fake letter in the files at Maxwell Toys that said Jimmy Sullivan, the client of O'Hare, was the creator of the Mary Moody doll. All right. So Ben meets with this mystery man again, and they go through that, and they do the old book trick from Hollywood, like, oh, if you think that I'm right, you drop the book on the floor. Like, that wouldn't cause a bunch of like people to go, hey, what are you doing? Stop throwing the books. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
he doesn't say if you think I'm right, if I'm right, which means the guy already knows if Ben's right, which it goes back to my previous statement of just tell him what you know.
Yes. Well, here's what we're going to know. We're going to know who the mystery man is, because in the next scene, Michelle is waiting in the hall of the courtroom for subpoenas from Judge Parker, and his clerk, Terry, delivers them to Michelle. So Terry is the mystery man.
He is.
What'd you think about that twist?
He is an international man of mystery.
Well, international man, more like an Atlanta man of mystery. So Michelle doesn't want to take David's files, and this is a scene that takes place in Ben's office. She explains her past relationship with Conrad. Here's my thing. She says something about, like, Ben and I went away to do a case, and we came back and he had a fiance. Like, what the hell? Like, that's moving very fast.
That would have been, I mean, what, a couple, maybe a month for the case to be dating somebody and leave thinking you're still dating the person, and then to come back a month later, man.
Dude, that was like a giant red flag. I'm like, how? What? Anyways,
somebody was cheating on somebody. I'm just
somebody
saying.
was. Yeah, absolutely. So Conrad says that there's $120,000 that it was removed from the Connor Corporation and given to Tom and to David. So Michelle interviews John McClane. So John McClane is very leery to give up information at first, but basically he's saying, I left. I was not fired. I left because I believe that there's some money laundering going on at the Connor Corporation. There's a picture of Judge Levin at John's place, which might be another clue. And so Ben interviews Judge Levin. Ben throws out his theory, right? Which, he thinks that Tom planted the letter and then sue for the money in a civil court, and then somehow there'll be some kickbacks or something, and that she is involved in it too, which makes her very, very angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she is not a pleasant person. As soon as I saw her, I knew who the culprit of this entire episode was. I'm not even going to hold back. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but she is just an unpleasant little person.
Well, here's my thing. So we get a scene where Levin, Tom, and David meet at the zoo. Why are we going to the zoo? Like, that seems to be a very populated place. Like, you think you would want to cut out that?
It's a lot easier to have a coincidence at a very populated place, I think. Like, I mean, everybody goes to the zoo, right?
I don't. So, hint, if I'm involved in a secret conspiracy, don't bother going to the Columbus Zoo, because I won't be hanging out over there talking to my minions about what I want to do.
John, you hate animals. That's why you don't go to the zoo.
First of all, I love cats. How dare you? I love cats. And Newfoundlands are pretty good too. I like Newfies. All right. But cats. I do dig cats. Anyways, so basically, Levin says to the other two, Ben knows everything. And we get a pan out, and there's Conrad overseeing everything. So David and Michelle have dinner. Michelle has the phone records of Howard and grills David about the meeting at the zoo. Michelle has lost her appetite and leaves. And then Terry and Ben meet one more time to get on the right track. And at the end of their meeting, there's a gunshot. And Terry is dead on the floor of the bookstore. Okay, so that was a twist I didn't see coming. What about you?
I honestly, because we were getting really close to the 45-minute mark, and I'm like, hey, is this episode not going to end with an awful thing? And then, like, the awful thing happened.
Mm-hmm. So I mentioned to keep in mind John McClane. I just caught this, and I thought this was funny. I bet it's an inside joke, because there was an executive producer named John McClane.
Oh,
So I'm
nice. And
wondering
Die
if they were
Hard.
like, yeah, and I think it's maybe a massive joke, maybe on, oh, let's get John McClane to be the, hey John, he comes in one morning, we're gonna make you use your name in the show. Ha 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 ha. All right, let's move on to part 2 then. We have the same opening scene, and then we cut to a scene at the bookstore where Ben and Conrad are talking about Terry's death. Ben actually says that he feels kind of responsible for it. Which, I mean, he's not 100% wrong on that.
Listen, Ben, it's not all on you either. This guy was an idiot. He shouldn't have. He should have just came flat out to you because you could have protected him, because he obviously knew what he knew. And he didn't want to tell you.
Wow.
He made you play book games. I'm just saying, this guy could have saved himself if he had just been forthright with his information as opposed to trying to sneak around. That's all I'm saying.
You're blaming the victim. I hope you know
Blaming the victim. I'm just saying the victim could have helped himself.
Okay.
And Ben should have also just let Conrad come anyway.
Okay.
I agree. I mean, both at fault.
Well, through a conversation among Ben and Conrad and Michelle going over the books, we find out that Tom does have an alibi. And then we find Sam Bergstrom is also getting checks. So we got to take a road trip to Savannah, Georgia. And in the meantime, we find out that Tom has indeed won the case. I think he got like $5 million for Jimmy Sullivan. He got like $5 million in the...
Speaking of last week's episode, John, Lizzie wanted me to tell you that she's canceling you. Not really.
No, come on. Lily, Lizzie, that was just a joke. It was a joke,
I think that's what she goes by. Maybe it's Liz. I don't know. She goes by one of the two. She's going to be on our show in a month, guys, which will be super awesome.
All right, so we go to Tom and his client, Jim Sullivan, walking in the parking lot, and then Ben shows up, and he accuses Tom basically of being the murderer, and Tom gets super angry at Ben, threatens to ruin his career, to sue him for every dime he's got, yada, yada, yada. By the way, just as a side note, I liked this scene in the parking lot because I liked looking at the old cars. And it hurts me to say old cars when they were cars from the 90s, but, not from the 60s when you would think, because I'll just stop rambling because I'm an old man. We got it. Anyways, we find out that Tom, as he drives away, that his car is leaking transmission fluid.
Yeah, it is.
Uh-huh. So Ben's at Howard. Ben is at Howard's wood shop, and he sees an old man walking a dog. So Ben goes and talks to the old man, who is, of course, Mr. Spaulding, played by Leo Penn. And the dog is barking all crazy, at Ben and whatnot. And Ben asks if he saw any or heard anything the night of the murder. And the dog's barking, obviously. The dog's going to bark at whatever. So if somebody was there, the dog's going to bark because that's just how it is. So it cuts to a scene where Bob Brooks arrests Tom, and boy, does he fly off the handle again. In fact, I think he grabbed Ben by the lapels. I want Ben to cold cock him one. Pow! Right in the kisser.
I'm going to have so many lawsuits against you.
I thought this was funny. I really did. We go to the courtroom for the preliminary hearing. Ben is not used to sitting on the prosecutor's side of things, which I thought was a nice little touch. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So Ben also has a quip about the defense attorney, Chester Gaddis, that he dresses funny, which I thought also was a nice little funny ha-ha moment. Conrad chats with Sam Bergstrom. We find out that Sam is short for Samantha and that it's the aunt of Levin, of Judge Levin. But in order to get all this information, Conrad pretends to be a member of the IRS. Levin shows up in Judge's chambers. David and Levin disagree with Ben's theory because, again, he drops his theory about how all this connects together. David pleads with Michelle. Oh, excuse me. After that, Ben drops subpoenas on David and Levin. And then we cut to a scene where David meets with Michelle one more time. He pleads, he begs for Michelle to help him out, to get Ben to back off. But of course, Michelle won't do such a thing. She's not going to. She refuses and leaves. Mr. Spaulding's
use her. He's trying to use Michelle, and she will not let him. Good for you, Michelle. You go, girl.
That's right. She's a strong, independent woman. She don't need to help him out. No. So basically, Mr. Spaulding claims that he saw Tom when he was walking his dog. But then old Chester gets up there to the defense attorney and blows Spaulding's testimony away. Oh, how's your eyesight? Oh, it was dark outside. Oh, was there only one light? There's a 40-watt bulb outside the garage. Oh, I don't know if you really saw what you think you saw. He is very good. I got to say, this Chester Gaddis is a great opponent for Ben to play off of. What do you think?
Yeah, very good.
All right. Ben and Michelle chat about how good he was, he being, of course, Chester Gaddis. And now, right inside the elevator steps David, and he says, I'm ready to deal, man. I need a deal. So David goes on the stand. Tom has asked David to kind of manipulate a multi-million-dollar suit. All right, you help me manipulate it, help me win. I get a third. I will split my third with you. All right. So they get Levin involved in the scam, and then the money is laundered through the Connor Corporation. So Tom hired Jimmy to plant the letter, as we thought, and Tom could be disbarred and serve time if he was caught. That's why everything was so secret, if you will. And boy, Chester, he gets all fired up like Ben when he gets a chance to cross-examine David. And Conrad arrives with some evidence. And so in the judge's chamber, Chester's mad about this new evidence, but the judge was like, let's give him a half a day recess. All right. After Bob Brooks testifies. Okay. We find out that through chemical analysis that the transmission fluid from Tom's car is what was on the driveway at Howard's. Tom also has traces of varnish on his shoe and like on the carpet in his car and on the brake pedal and all that jazz. So Chester, in a private conversation, gets a little bit angry at Tom because he thinks he destroyed their plan of attack. They're going to put Tom on the stand. So Tom is on the stand. He admits to everything, the conspiracy and everything, but adamantly says, I did not kill Howard. He says, look, I showed up, he was dead. He was laying on the floor. And I turned around, I ran, and I left a briefcase of money. His money, his $100K is in a briefcase. I set it down. I totally forgot about it. I wanted to get out of there. I got out of there. I realized the next day, oh, crap. I didn't bring the briefcase with me. So there's no briefcase or $100K found when the first search went through. So Ben lies about being ill to get a recess, and then Ben thinks and tells Michelle that I think he's telling the truth. Mrs. Wright never saw a briefcase. Conrad finds the money, all right, because Sam calls her niece, Levin, and says, hey, somebody's been snooping around asking about the money, and obviously it's Conrad. He's figured out where the money went. The money went, that $100,000 was deposited into that account of Samantha. So Levin is not very happy. She enters Tom's office and she plants the 38 special in his drawer. So the next day, Ben is questioning a few other witnesses, and then he also cross-examines with Levin. Levin denies the conspiracy and claims that the money was for consulting. But Ben says, look, you went over to Howard's house before Tom got there. You shot him. You left.
Dude, she is a lying, mean person, like all the way through this thing. Like she gets more and more mean and angry about it.
That's right. And so basically, and then after you
even when Tom she sees the TV, she's still saying no. She's like that Shaggy song. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. Well, anyways, she leaves. She finds out that Tom leaves, and then she goes down there and sees that the briefcase is there. So she swipes the briefcase, and Ben has a little surprise for her, though. Hey, man, what's this? Oh, it's a 38 special. Guess where we found it? We found it in Tom's desk. Guess what? There were cameras in the room. We caught you on film. Ha ha! Gotcha. And as you said, she denies it. She denies it. Tom is found innocent. Chester and Ben banter a little bit, and Tom wants Ben to be his counsel, and he was like, absolutely not. And then their final line is, hey, nice suit. Nice tie. What a fitting way to end this episode. So
I got a question. Got question.
Okay.
So Ben is part of the prosecution in this case. Wouldn't he just close the case and then just say, like, we're going to drop the charges and then present the evidence of her? Like, wouldn't that normally? I get it's for television, and we got to see how it plays out. But in a normal situation, I think that's how that works. As a prosecutor.
I think so too. Yeah, I think so too.
It's weird that they kept saying, you know, the prosecution is working with the police. The prosecution always works closely with the police. That's not anything new. I mean, I watch Law and Order. I know how it works.
You got your law degree from Lenny Briscoe.
Yeah, from Dick Wolf. He gave me my law degree.
All right. Anything else before we get to our closing statements?
No.
All right. Then let's go ahead and get into our closing. Not opening. We've just opened.
This is the part of the podcast where John and I will lose our minds discussing this episode. 1 gavel means we absolutely hated it. 5 gavels means we absolutely loved it. Negative 30 gavels means we are moving to Colorado. We're going to buy an inn, and we're going to welcome people to come stay there.
Hey. I am willing to do that if we can get an N like Newhart. There you go. If we can have one of those.
I watch Hallmark Christmas movies, and I know that if you ever want to truly find the love of your life, you've got to move to an inn and run a small inn.
Okay. All right.
I'm down.
That's not how I did it, but okay.
I bet Courtney would love to go down there.
Anyways. All right. Jason, do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Go.
All right. I gave this episode 5 gavels. I loved it. It was very good. I loved the conspiracy angle. I loved the surprise of Terry's death. I liked the play of Michelle and David. I thought that old Chester was a great adversary for Ben. The complicated part, the complicated conspiracy plan. The only negative I have is I felt that at times Chester Gaddis was a little bit over the top, like chewing up with a little bit of scenery. But besides that, love the episode. 5 gavels.
Well, John, this episode really needed Ace Calhoun. I was very upset that Don Knotts didn't show up in this episode, so that's going to bring my score down. I'm just kidding. I agree. The episode was really well done. One of the better 2-parters. And like I said, this season has been hit or miss, and this is definitely a hit out the park. I like the different perspective of doing this case, even though it ended the same way, even though Ben was on the prosecution. But still, I enjoyed it. I mean, my only negative would be the end, but it has to be that way because it's a television show and where you want to see how it ends. It can't be like Law and Order where they just leave us hanging like, what?
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Well, we're going a little bit long here, so let's wrap this bad boy up. Tell folks about the 3 Geeks podcast. Go.
Guys, I am doing a lot of weekly reviews. I've got The Penguin. I've got Agatha All Along. I'll be doing the new Matlock. I'm doing a lot of shows, and I got a bunch of reviews to do. Everything that I watch, for the most part, that merits week-to-week review and discussion, I'm going to be doing it. Like Law and Order, I'm not doing that because there is nothing to discuss as a through line throughout the series. I'm only doing Matlock because of this. So, yeah. Come hang out at 3 Geeks Podcast everywhere.
You can check out the PVD Cast, which is my own personal podcasting project. It's available over at pvdcast.com or wherever you find great podcasts. Right now, this week's episode is a gentleman by the name of Jeremy Fuscato. He is a New Jersey resident who is also an independent comic book creator. And so definitely check that out. Again, new episodes drop every Thursday of the PVD Cast. And yeah. That's all I got, man. So
that's all I got.
Should we get out of here?
Let's do it.
Then let's. All right, as they say in court, nothing further.